people at BeHealth.Today and the Idea Guy. So this is something that I had an idea, I had been dreaming about it, and then this 4-week process has kind of been a whirlwind, but it's also been really cool to see this idea get developed. So I'm very honored that I get to share it with everyone in this room. So the title of this project is called cOMmunity Yoga Collective. And then the quick intro. So I noticed that compared to other people's slides, I have a lot of text and I have a lot of information to go through, so just please do your best and stay with me. So I started out with the problem that I saw. So I'm a community member, I live in City Heights, and I have 8 years of experience as a special education teacher working for public schools, and I am a yogi. So I personally have found yoga to be very helpful, and I'm actually really grateful to other individuals who share, because I also suffer from anxiety and depression, and yoga has been something that, you know, when you can't get into an appointment with your psychologist, the yoga studio is always there for you. So it's something that I've learned to rely upon heavily for my own wellness. But then also as a public school teacher, I really noticed a shift when I started to use yoga with my students. And I really started to see a lot of positive changes in them and more connection between me and my students, and then the students among themselves. So the people involved, I want to go back. So I started to wonder why, if yoga was so good for me and so good for my students, I started wondering, why aren't more people in my community doing yoga? And then that's when I started to discover some barriers. So the people involved, so I, Louise Mettler, I am passionate about sharing the mind and body healing that can be achieved with yoga, and I believe that it needs to be included into a comprehensive approach that addresses the healing of trauma. I want to thank the groups that went before me who touched upon trauma, because it is a large issue that we're dealing with. And then the impact of the problem. So I hope that through this presentation, I can illustrate the impact that trauma has on individuals and on whole communities. And I want to tell you about this innovative approach that I have that can support children and families with mental health issues. It can support people who are in recovery, and it can support wellness of really people of all ages. So my problem statement, and this has evolved a number of times, and this is where I ended up. It is, how might a nonprofit yoga studio increase access to health and wellness offerings in underserved communities in order to nurture the healing of trauma at the individual and at the community level, with yoga classes that are enhanced with an app. So working with Kevin, we came up with a project plan, and you guys are going to notice I'm a super perfectionist, so this was not enough time to do all the things. And Kevin's coaching was a little bit more Gordon Ramsay. What I kind of wanted was more Tim Gunn. But it all worked out, and it's beautiful, and I'm happy to present. So anyways, starting out with empathizing, really getting at what are the barriers, what are stopping people in my community of City Heights from doing yoga. And number one that we found is the cost and affordability. In San Diego, the typical yoga class costs $20, or that's for a single drop-in visit. Or you can do a monthly membership, and those range anywhere from $80 to $120. For a lot of working families, that is just not in the budget. The next thing that we noticed, a barrier, transportation or location. A lot of the people, the community members of City Heights, either rely upon public transportation, or they have one car to a whole household, so they're sharing. So the idea of parking a car at a yoga studio for 90 minutes doesn't work for a lot of families. The next barrier we noted was childcare and family friendliness of studios, and then inclusivity and representation. This is one of those invisible barriers, but I thought it was important to include, because one of the things I've noticed, being a yogi in San Diego, is that when you go into a lot of yoga studios in our county, most of the people overwhelmingly look like me. They are young, they are white, and they are fit. But how does that present if you're a person who is not necessarily in the best shape of your life, if you are a person of color, if you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community, how are you feeling included in what's being offered right now? And we've discovered that there are barriers. Okay, so part of this process is I had to go out into my community and really ask people of City Heights, what do you think about this? So the first thing that was really encouraging is I spent an afternoon talking to folks, and 100% of the respondents said that they thought that a nonprofit yoga studio was a good idea in City Heights. The next thing I asked them was, hey, have you ever tried yoga before today? And that's the cool thing about San Diego, is I found that a number of the respondents, so 14 people had said, yes, we've tried yoga before. But then there were a number, we had 8 respondents say, no, I've never tried yoga. And then I asked them, if there were a nonprofit yoga studio in City Heights, would you try a class? And all but one said no. Everyone said yes. One person said no. And it was a teenage boy that I met outside of the Dojo Cafe, and I think he was just giving me a hard time. I bet if a cute girl went, I bet he would go too. So this is Bugs, my dog. And this is our survey, and we just went out and we talked. It was about 3 hours. We just talked to the community last week. And what I learned from this, I learned that from talking to my neighbors, a lot of people have been exposed to yoga. They have positive attitudes towards yoga, and 95% of respondents said they would try yoga if there was an affordable option nearby. 100% of the people said that this is a good idea. So the implications for us. The implications are that the residents of City Heights, they do want access to wellness programming. The top barriers that people told me about were affordability and time. Every person I talked to was supportive, and I even met with a city council representative who wants to learn more about the project. So that was pretty cool too. So a part of our empathizing, I got some in-depth interviews from other people who live and work in City Heights. So this is Martin. Martin is a community organizer who works in City Heights, and he's a lifelong resident of the South Bay neighborhood. Martin shared that he has not worked out in 2 years due to a busy work schedule. He lives in South Bay, works in City Heights, and it doesn't leave a whole lot of other time for exercise. He said that he had never tried yoga, but he thinks that it would help with the lower back pain that he experiences from having a desk job. So Martin identified that yoga can help with physical and mental wellness, and he said that he would try yoga if there was an affordable option that existed near his home or his work. He believes that a nonprofit yoga studio is a good idea because affordability is the biggest barrier for most people. I also did an interview with another friend named Michelle. So Michelle is a guidance counselor who lives and works in City Heights. Kind of getting back to this idea of trauma, the reason I picked these 2 people is because there's something called secondary trauma. Both Martin and Michelle work directly with people who have experienced trauma. And one of the effects of that is over time, you can actually develop something called secondary PTSD just from being present and supporting people. So I thought Michelle was a good person for that reason. Walking is her favorite exercise, and she sometimes does stretches and sit-ups. She took a yoga class once, but that was maybe 4 years ago, she said. She does believe that yoga relaxes the mind and body. She said, I love this, she said that yoga promotes a feeling of peacefulness, and she said it allows you to release your negative energy so you can let positive energy in. I definitely agree with that. And she identified that location is the biggest barrier for City Heights residents. She thinks that a nonprofit yoga studio is a good idea so people can get exercise right in their community. These people don't need more barriers. I was asked to take a look at what exists today, what programs are out there that are trying to increase yoga accessibility already. So the first one that I found, and I would really like to connect with these people at OG Yoga. So OG Yoga takes trauma-informed yoga and takes it into places like schools and community centers. So they're doing really good work. There's also the Prison Yoga Project that's going on here in San Diego. And it is the idea of freedom from within a jail cell even. And then there's a mind-body app. This is an app that people who go to regular for-profit yoga studios often access to check in and pay. And then this is something that I use. I do a lot of my own yoga at home, and Gaia is a great resource. However, it costs $15 a month to have access to these yoga videos. All right, so now I'm gonna get into the define part. And I really wanted to do a good job of defining trauma, just like some of my colleagues did. So I'm gonna go through this as fast as possible, but it is dense. So first of all, what is trauma? We keep talking about trauma. Trauma describes a deeply distressing or disturbing experience, okay? Experience of trauma, what they do is they overwhelm your central nervous system, and they change the way our brain and body functions. I kind of want to speak to this a little bit from a personal standpoint. I grew up in Chicago, and I witnessed a person being shot. And after that happened, I thought I was okay. And I just, it was like, all right, you have coffee with your neighbors afterwards, you talk about what a crazy situation that was, you cry yourself to sleep, and then the next day you go to work. And it's normal life again. And things go on. And I thought I was okay. But 2 years ago, as a public school teacher, I experienced a very great loss. One of my former students was killed in gun violence. And it was all of those things that I thought I was okay, they all came rushing back for me. And this is when it's kind of like, it's out of your control. It totally takes over your nervous system. And if it's not treated, trauma is pervasive. It has a significant impact on development, physical, mental health, and well-being. So some examples of trauma: death, divorce, injury, war, moving, abandonment, neglect, abuse, sexual assault, kind of like John was talking about, and incarceration. So I wanted to put this sign up because I wanted us to realize that trauma is not some other. Trauma is not some other place, other person. Trauma is us, okay? In the United States, there is associated symptoms of mental and psychological illness here more than any other country in the world, okay? This is our problem. According to data from the 2016 National Survey of Children's Health, 46% of youth ages 17 and under reported experiencing at least one trauma, okay? Now this is what I really would like you all to focus on: the fact that boys and men of color are at even higher risk of trauma because they have multiple factors, such as higher rates of incarceration and more exposure to violence. Similar findings exist within the LGBTQ+ community, people with disabilities, and then other marginalized groups. So, what does this mean? Why am I talking about all of this trauma? I'm like a lady who likes to do yoga. Well, some of the things that happen if you have trauma, some of the symptoms include anxiety, depression, cognitive and academic problems, insomnia, isolation, higher use of mental health services, increased unemployment, poverty, and an early death. That's for an individual who's experienced a trauma. What does this look like for the community? This looks like disconnected social relationships, intergenerational poverty, sound familiar? Unhealthy public spaces, violence, and private disinvestment. What does this look like for our whole community of San Diego? People who've experienced trauma are 204% more likely to receive mental health services. They're also 53% more likely to be involved in the juvenile justice system. And I got these stats from teachtrauma.com. So from all of this discussion of trauma, I thought this was a really great way to describe it, and this is a tool from the Adverse Community Experiences and Resilience. They talked about trauma, ways to address it. The first thing you need, equitable opportunity. You also need to create safe places and the people. It's so important to rebuild communities, rebuilding social relationships, strengthen social norms, okay? So trauma is, the implications that I want you to take home is that trauma is a very serious public health issue that's going to require a coordinated, comprehensive response from health and behavioral providers. So this is the crux of the presentation. Why yoga? So yoga and mindfulness are tools that can help take a person from trauma to well-being. And that's what I've experienced through my own practice. So yoga is great with stress reduction, it improves your fitness, and it can also help people manage more chronic conditions. Group yoga classes actually combat trauma at the community level by providing a safe space for community connection and positive social norms. Another thing that I did while exploring this project is I had sensed that in City Heights we had lower access, but I wanted to really see. So I mapped out all of the yoga studios in San Diego. And come to find out, there are 99 for-profit yoga studios in San Diego. That's what you see here. This right here is where I live. This is City Heights. There are no yoga studios in City Heights. You notice some similar findings for places like National City and Barrio Logan. So this points out the disparity between communities. This is the problem. The for-profit model is leaving entire communities in the dark. Neighborhoods that have increased trauma also have fewer access to things that are going to help them heal. So I started coming up with ideas, and I had a lot of them. I thought, oh, what if there was a sliding scale donation yoga classes for all ages? What if there was high quality trauma-informed yoga classes taught every day in City Heights? How about yoga for kids with disabilities, family yoga, yoga for teens, baby and parent yoga, culturally inclusive classes and programs? And I really thought about a space and an app that could I was thinking about them separately, and I did think of a pilot community center as a yoga lab that could serve underserved communities. I brought those ideas or converged them together with this idea of a hybrid experience. So a yoga studio, a nonprofit yoga studio where people could access yoga, but then also an app that would help enhance that experience, help them feel more connected. So now we're finally to the prototype. Raise your hand if you, I guess, print materials? I have print materials. Who should I give these to? Okay. So this is the app. I want to take a look. Cool. Okay, cool. So this is our prototype. I tried to create a yoga studio that could be fitted to go just about anywhere. And then the idea is, this is our mission statement. Community Yoga is a nonprofit devoted to increasing access of yoga and mindfulness by offering free and sliding scale yoga classes and an experience enhancing app. Yoga and mindfulness are our vehicle to nurture healing on the individual and community level, body positive, LGBTQ plus friendly, and inclusive of all people. Now, those of you who were lucky enough to get a printout, this is our prototype of our app. So what this app would look like is you access the community app, and then you go to your profile. On your profile, it'll help you keep track. It'll show you how many yoga classes you've taken, how many weeks have you done it in a row, and how many challenges have you completed. From there, you can go to your class check-in, where you can view our schedule and decide if you want to book that Rise and Shine yoga class. Once you go to book it, this is the technology. This is how we can offer sliding scale, right? So we say, how much are you going to pay? And I think that a community like City Heights is very diverse. So I think that you'll be getting some people who pay a lower amount that's affordable for them. But I think that we do have people who would be coming in at the $20 class level as well. So I think that it'd be a cool way to bring a lot of different people together. I envision this app also having a challenge section. So if you can, these are all the yoga classes a person did, and we're trying to work to get to 30. And then also a part to talk about programs and events. So this is where we could also connect with our base and get them to register for all the cool events. We could also use the app to help people learn more about yoga. One of the barriers is sometimes people don't want to go to a class if they don't know what everything is. So this is a way to be like, oh, what are sun salutations? Let me watch it on the app before I go in the class so I know what to expect. Oh, I'm at home and I would like to do some different yoga things here. Here are some examples of chair yoga that you could try out. And then the last thing that I thought was very important when we practice yoga, it is a mind and body practice. And sometimes things come up for people. Things that when that body is stored, the trauma is stored in our body, you don't even know that you're dealing with it and it can come up. So I thought it was important that our studio space is enhanced with an app that can connect people to resources. So it says yoga is a great tool, but if you need to talk to a professional, this is how we connect you. So I wanted to share this project out. So this morning I took a picture of the model and I posted this on my Instagram account. And I just said, hey guys, I've been working with BeHealth.Today and the Idea Guy, developing an innovative idea to address trauma. I let people know about my project, and within a matter of 1 hour, I had more than 11 comments. People, my neighbors saying, please do, it would be something I could really benefit from. And then there are also, I'll tell you about that later. Anyways, just a lot of positive support. I love this person. They said that's a great idea and way to shatter the image that yoga is only for wealthy white people. Good luck. Okay, so the feedback. I got a lot of feedback. Basically, the most exciting thing is there's these people at the Dojo Cafe who are also looking for a space and they thought about working together. That's exciting. So the main thing that I'd like you to take away, efforts that seek to heal trauma are greatly needed right now. Yoga is an innovative approach that can address children and family mental health. It can help people in recovery, and it can be a way to improve wellness for people of all ages. So thank you so much.
Questions, comments, suggestions? Where do we begin?
For me, at Parent Care, they have yoga twice a week, and they even have it for our little kiddos downstairs in TLC.
Yeah.
So for me, getting realigned with my inner self was done through yoga.
Oh, that makes,
And
yeah.
now that my children are teens, I really use the breathing techniques a lot.
Oh, that makes my heart feel so happy that you had access in that way.
Yeah.
That's excellent that you had that access. That makes me happy.
Yeah, the yoga teacher at the other location, at the other Parent Care location, she would incorporate the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah.
Recovery yoga. Yes.
Yes.
It's all good. You can't tell I'm into this stuff.
Yeah. Just a little.
No.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm trying to understand if the yoga studio is for a wide variety of the community, or is it targeting low income, folks
Yeah.
that are dealing with violence and trauma and so on and so forth. So it sounds like you have like a nonprofit and a for-profit thing going on. And have you thought about other avenues regarding location? I mean, sometimes they have yogas in the schools for kids. It's not as often as it could be, but incorporating the family aspect of that in a school setting or something like that. So would it just be a general building that people would go to in a specific community, allowing some access? Is it nonprofit? This sliding scale, is that monthly? Is that per session?
Yeah, no, thank you. Those are all really great questions. I think the idea of a community yoga studio is just like a for-profit yoga studio, right? They pop up, and the people in that community, that area that it speaks to, that's who winds up going there. I want to have high-quality, trauma-informed yoga happening every single day at this studio space. Let me make sure I'm answering all parts of your question.
So
It's kind of
income.
So,
I mean,
like
$5
the
is a lot to some families, $10.
No,
for one
yes,
session is a lot.
absolutely. I thought the idea of the app was a cool way for payment to be kind of anonymous. So City Heights is a very diverse community. You've got, every economic level there. So I thought that the app would be an anonymous way for someone who really doesn't have the money right now just to pay $0, but also for someone who does have the money to pay $10, So a way that's the way I'm trying to address equality and increase access.
Would you
I
do
definitely
an assessment to determine the sliding scale for individuals, like a membership assessment type deal, where people will know where they stand in participating, and as they are able to pay, they can, and where that money will be doing? Is it just for the instructors, or are there, you talked about some events and so on? So-
Yep. So I was thinking that all of the money generated through these donations would go to adding to our programming.
Okay.
So, and definitely a dream is to get into the schools in City Heights, because right now some schools have yoga programming and many schools do not. Yeah. So it's kind of a multi-avenue. Yeah.
Any other questions? Comments?
The Dojo Cafe, isn't that little tiny trailer right there in between the YMCA?
Yeah,
and
Fairmount and
Yeah.
Upper.
Yeah, I live right there.
Oh, sweet. They
Yeah,
want
me
to
too.
partners. That's kind of fun.
Go give Carlos a hug.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
Any other questions?